Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Widnes Rugby Chat. It's episode 13, in between the post-Toulouse, pre-Toronto, a bit later than usual this week. I've dragged my left-hand man from Love Rugby League, Drew Darbyshire, to join us because we're going to have a bit of a look at the Toronto game a bit later on. We'll run through a few things. I want to talk about the club ownership, the takeover. I know there was a fans meeting last night as well, so we'll reflect a little bit on that and then go over some other bits. But Drew, we'll look back to the weekend and a Widnes win in Toulouse, which we both predicted actually in Love Rugby League Weekly last week. How big of a result is that for Kieran Purtle and his team so early in the season?
Oh, it's massive, isn't it? I don't think a lot of Widnes fans would have predicted. Well, they would have wanted Widnes to win, of course, but I don't think they would have been expecting to come away with the points, especially in Toulouse, because we all know France is a tough place to go, whether it's Catalans or Toulouse. It's massive for Kieran Purtle's side. It'll give him a big confidence boost going into a massive game this weekend against Toronto. So it'll do him the world a good, wouldn't it?
I think everyone was surprised that Toulouse lost but to Lee the previous week. But I think generally speaking, it's fair to say that Toulouse away and Toronto away, you would say, are the hardest two games in the league, wouldn't you?
Yeah, 100%. It's always a tough place to go because you've got to travel over. And I know it's not that far on a plane, but you've got to travel over, and then you end up staying over for 3 or 4 nights. So then all your routines change. Obviously, the weather is a little bit different. It wouldn't have been too much different at this time of year. But you've got to go through all them changes. You're staying in rooms for a couple of days, so it kind of becomes a little holiday as well for the players, which can sometimes distract them when they go to the likes of Catalan and Toulouse. So it's a massive game, but what it will do is it'll give them confidence and it'll put belief in them that they can actually beat Toronto, who will be the big favourites for Saturday's game. Yeah,
I mean the pitch as well at Toulouse, it was an absolute dog, wasn't it, from the highlights. I mean, obviously, stark contrast to Widnes' nice new artificial pitch. So, good in that regard as well for Widnes to get over the line and score some good tries. I got a bit of a bee in my bonnet about this because the championship try of the week, the last 2 weeks, I've thought that at least one Widnes try could have been in both weeks and wasn't. And I think the pick of the tries for me was probably that one where Gellin shrugged off a few on the right hand side and put Jordan Johnston in and then he put Ryan into it.
He's got to be a good player, isn't he, in the championship this season. I'm really looking forward to watching him against Ricky Latelli, who's arguably the other best centre in the competition in 2019. So it's going to be a right humdinger of a battle on Saturday between them two. But I like the style of rugby that Purtle's brought to Widnes, because under Betts and then under Francis Cummins last season, they were just playing 5 drives and a kick, weren't they? They weren't really doing much with the ball in hand, and now they're so confident with the ball, they're throwing it here, there and everywhere. The halves are doing a cracking job, because that's what we was a little bit unsure of the last time I appeared on this show, James. It was before the season, and we was like, we don't really know how Widnes' halves will fare this season, because is there a real organiser between them? But it seems like it's going great.
I think Danny Craven's definitely stepped up. He's like certainly from the bits I've seen from last week and then the Halifax game, he's almost stepped up to the plate. He's a senior player effectively now, and his kicking game especially is really good. And if he scored a nice try again on Saturday, bringing through.
I've liked Craven personally for quite a few years, and it was like 5 years ago, wasn't it? It was loaned to Fed.
Yeah.
And I thought Widnes should have given him a go earlier than they did, because he's always been used as just a utility player where, or Hammer's injured, we'll shove him in, or Mella can't play today, we'll shove him in. And I've always rated him, and I've always thought, because players when they're in and out the side, they're not going to reach potential.
I mean, he's a good example, I suppose, of a player that's affected by no reserve structure, because he wasn't playing, like you say, from 2013 onwards, Widnes had Brown and Mellor as the halves, and you couldn't really make a sound case for him to play ahead of either of those. And so obviously now he knows, he's got number 6 shirt, he's got the set place in the team that is his to keep now. He knows that Kevin Brown isn't going to come back from injury and going ahead of him. So, maybe that's given him a little bit, they've put a bit of faith in him and he's kicked on. Worth noting as well that, as much as we talk about Gelling, Kuznaninu still missing. Widnes were also missing Hep Cahill. So even more impressive perhaps to win away in France with those two missing. A couple, I know Liam Wood started pretty well. He had a few big shots, which
to be fair though, Liam Wood's one of the best hookers in the championship by some distance really. Obviously there's quite a few good hookers in the championship, but if you were probably to pick one hooker to have in your side, it'd probably be Liam Wood. He's been so much of an underrated player at Leigh. I actually, when he was at Salford quite a few years ago, I thought he was out of his depth a little bit, and he was still very much a young lad. And then he went to Swinton, and I thought, yeah, he did it. But when he was at Swinton, I thought it was too much of a step down for him. I thought he needed to find somewhere in the middle, so he ripped it up at Swinton, and then he went to Leigh, and I think he's finally found his feet at Leigh and performed to a great standard. It was him and Mickey Hyam rotating, and you've got them.
Yeah, I think the thing with Hood, and to be fair, there's a few players like this in the Widnes team that, you know that they're good players, but if they can play above themselves, which in my opinion Liam Hood has been, and Danny Craven to an extent, that's what's going to help Widnes do well. Before we move on to a few other bits, I just want to talk about Ashaw, Bott and Owens. So Owens is being picked at fullback in the first game, and then he was picked on the wing in the second game, and I think they swapped after about 10 minutes. Owens was really good against Halifax, but you don't see it would appear that maybe Kieran Pirtle's looked at it and thought some games we'll play, it'd be better to play Owens at one, some games it'd be better to play Ashaw. Do you think that's what's happening?
It probably is, but in my personal opinion, but I'm not a coach, never have been, Ashaw Bott's got to be at fullback for me because he's not a winger.
Yeah, I've seen a few comments that he's looking a bit out of his depth on the wing.
It's because of his size as well. Because say if he comes up against a winger over 6'2", he'll have serious problems. Whereas Owens is equally as comfortable playing fullback and wing, so it doesn't bother him. But it's Ashaw Bott. I think Ashaw Bott's much more effective at fullback than he is on the wing. So I just swap them.
The other thing is as well is Widnes have got Owen Buckley, who's probably a foot taller than Ashaw Bott, who sat on the bench, sat in the reserve, not getting picked. Yeah. So a straightforward replacement there. Before we move on to Toronto, there's just a few things to run through. So the Widnes Independent Support Society, which is Whistle, which is the old Trust in Widnes, I guess, or the reformed Trust in Widnes. It's the same Governed Supporters Trust, but Louise Goodall and a few other people are trying to relaunch that. They had a meeting at Parklands on Wednesday night. I've not spoken to anyone at great depth about it, but I hear it was positive. Dave Holt and Phil Finney were there from the club. Obviously all about working together to try and raise funds for the club, but also give fans a platform to unite. After all, we've got one thing, well you haven't, but everyone's here. We've all got one thing in common, and that is that we support Widnes, and if we can work together in some way to benefit the club, then great. That's that one on my list. So keep an eye on that. There's a thread on the forum which has been a little bit sidetracked. The forum is going to be moving away from Whistle, of which I'll provide more information as and when. But obviously they're keen to have a fresh start and not be associated with the forum. On that note, I find it a bit frustrating that the forum gets criticism. It's not the forum that's the problem. It's the people on it, potentially. I don't particularly have a problem with anybody on there. But it annoys me a little bit when people say, don't want to go on the forum. As if the forum's the source of the problem. It's like there's plenty of idiots on Twitter as well. And Facebook, actually. People have been messaging me all week about takeover and if I know anything. The short answer is not really, but I've had a few. I've been trying to get people from the club on, and I've been trying to get people from the council on, but because it's a bit of a sensitive situation, it's still ongoing. Obviously, people are reluctant to put the neck on the line a little bit. My understanding is some sort of working party is putting together some sort of takeover bid, whether that's just obviously the current owners basically said they'd relinquish the shares, so whether it's just a case of taking it over as a going concern and trying to figure it out. My understanding is that there's not a massive money man in the in the background ready to buy the club or take it over, but it would appear that people with the club at heart are leading the discussions, working closely with the council, of course, and I'm hopeful that there'll be some movement in that in the next few weeks, and I've already got someone who's promised to come on once it has been sorted. So fingers crossed there. I know a few people there's been links with players this week, which obviously it's difficult for Widnes at the moment because it's all about saving money and not spending money. And on that note, Widnes have announced that the club shop in Tesco will be closing. Obviously it's a shame for the staff there, but maybe it's part of a cost cutting exercise. Logistics wise as well, I think it's probably easier to have the shop out.
I was just going to say it'd be much better, wouldn't it, to have the club shop in the stadium?
I think obviously the argument of having it in Tesco is that people go up the escalator into Tesco and it's there. But then if you're going for your big shop, are you going to deviate into the Widnes club shop? I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I don't think it's been exploited as much as it could have been where it is. You could still work with Tesco to have a banner up or something like that. If that's what they want to do. So I think moving it back to stadium is better for logistics because obviously you can store all the gear there. Instead of having separate staff, you could in theory have office staff who just react to it. I mean, people remember in the old days when the shop was in the south stand, which is now the ticket office bit. You used to just go in and there'd only be you in there, and then if someone needed, they'd come out and sort it out. So especially being in Championship as well. I'll bring you on this Drew as well. The club's social media. I mean, you're a social media supremo, and our old mate Sam White, who's a fellow Tix fan, as you say, and he's one of our old prodigies from the Love Rugby League office. He's been leading a bit of a revitalisation of Widnes on social media.
No, he's done a terrific job, hasn't he? Sam and the rest of the communication staff at Widnes. I've been impressed with what they've been doing over the off season. I've noticed the latest one is the wallpapers, and I know I've got some on Twitter, and I noticed he did a tweet saying he had over 350 wallpapers to sort out. So that's probably been his 8-hour job in work this week, James. But he's done a fantastic job. They did a good job with the Beat the Scrum campaign last year, and they should be applauded for that. And they just continue to make strides. I like the hashtag Rise Again. Obviously, we've spoken a lot in the past years about clubs using hashtags, clubs using pointless hashtags, and clubs using no hashtags at all. We look at some of the big boys in Super League, the likes of Wigan, Leeds, St Helens. They don't use hashtags at all, which is a kind of a strange one because obviously people just go to the social media channel straight away anyway. But then you've got ones like Stronger Together Stronger. Sorry, what Soul are you using, which I think's just a bit generic. On TweetDeck, what we follow, I follow New Beginnings.
There's all sorts of stuff on there.
There's all sorts. There's like people
have moved house or something, or had a divorce or stuff
people
like that.
in like Brazil going through divorces saying it's New Beginning with a picture of a cheesecake or something. I think so. It's a bit, but the Rise Again hashtag is fantastic, and it's good to see that the players use it as well. Players using it is a big one, and obviously when you've got Anthony Gelling doing it.
I think the other thing as well,
it certainly helps.
There's been a massive shift in that relationship between the club and the fans as a result, where I think now there seems to be a bit more, it's like the reins have been taken off some of the staff at the club, and they're now able to express themselves perhaps in a way that they didn't feel they were able to before. And you notice that now, I remember, obviously it helps when you win games, obviously, but, every post back end of last year on Facebook, on Twitter and whatever, they were just getting absolutely pilloried, whereas now it's like every post is almost like 95% positive.
Yeah, it's like a love affair now, isn't it, with Widnes. There's so much positivity, and going back to throughout the 2018 campaign when Dennis Betts were there, and then when Francis Cummins, and when all the relegation stuff came out, it was I would have liked Sam's job because Sam going on the social media account, it would have just got grief, and it'd get you down, wouldn't it?
I know from having spoken to Sam that he couldn't believe some of the messages and some of the abuse that he was getting, the club was getting, players were getting. you know. And
what I don't get is when like people would tweet clubs saying they'll act as though it's like the head coach running the Twitter account, so they'll say, why are we not signing anyone? It's about time.
Why don't you play him at fullback? As if like the media men go to the coach and say, right, look, Joe Bloggs from Alton View says we should be playing him at scrum half.
Oh, Dennis Betts says, David, 45 from Alton says, why have we not signed Ben Barber?
yeah. But I think, I mean, you know, it's so important for clubs in places the size of Widnes that they are engaging. Engaging. It'd be interesting to see. What the crowd? I thought the crowd was good against Halifax. There was 4,000.
Some Widnes have also put a nice little thing out as well because it's Valentine's Day today.
Oh right, I haven't seen
Happy
that.
Valentine's Day. They've put.
So that's the first one of that.
They've done an offer, haven't they? And they've said obviously seeing as though there's so much love going about, they'll offer I think it's hospitality tickets for the Sheffield game.
You know, the crowd. I was very surprised with the crowd against Halifax. It was a lot more than I thought they were going to get, and obviously they've been pushing this 10k challenge for the Featherstone Sheffield game. It's probably important for Widnes that they can maintain that 4,000 average, especially with a little bit of uncertainty over the finances. We'll look ahead now to the Toronto game on Saturday, so it's live on Sky, 5 o'clock. It's in Newcastle, Kingston Park. I'm hoping football gets postponed so I can go, but I'm not holding my breath. Big game. Do Widnes go into it with nothing to lose?
Yeah, I think that's the way to go because Toronto are clear favourites anyway, so there's no point in Widnes putting pressure on themselves thinking, oh, we've got to win this, or if Toronto win, they're ahead of us in the table or anything like that. I think they've literally just got to go in like they've gone into the Toulouse game. We're not because that's what they would have done with the Toulouse game. They would have just gone in there with no pressure, and they would have thought, well, we're not favourites to win anyway. The two full-time teams going away in France, they won't have been favourites, and that's what they would have done. They would have played freely. All the pressure went on Toulouse, and I think the pressure is on Toronto this week because their wage bills far superior. Their wage bills probably double at least what Widnes is.
Well, I mean, you would imagine so. I mean, you know, Joe Mellor left Widnes to go to Toronto for far more money than what he was on at Widnes.
Pressure certainly on Joe Mellor.
In Super League, I
Tom Alderson as well.
I think so. I think Toronto have looked nice. They look like they're playing nice rugby in the 2 games so far, but they've only played, with all due respect to these teams, they've only played York and Rochdale. How much of an advantage is it going to be for Widnes? That Widnes have had 2 pretty high intensity games against Halifax and Toulouse.
Yeah, no, it is. With all due respect to York and Rochdale, they never look like scoring. I know Rochdale went over for a try, but after that they never looked like scoring. York, they produced some fantastic defence, kept Toronto to 14 points, but the game could have been played for another 4 hours and York wouldn't have scored. Honestly, they wouldn't have. So it's going to be interesting because no one really knows what Toronto's defence is like. No one's tested Toronto's defence. Adam Lawton, former Widnes player, scored Rochdale's only try, and he literally was a 3-yard carry, a barge over, and you think, should Toronto have a tougher defence than that, because that was the only time Rochdale was near their line.
So it's going to be interesting to see whether Widnes do ask questions of that defence. And
the battle of the outside backs, that's the one.
So you mentioned it, we'll talk about it now then. So Gelib against Lately, they're going to play on the same side, so they're going to be opposite each other.
What is a little bit worrying for Widnes is, who would be on Matty Russell, who would be on Ashore Bott's wing? Would it be Russell or...
No, Russell's on
Higson. So it'd be Higson, and Higson's about 6'2".
Yeah, so
he's a big one.
I mean, the squad's out and Ashore Bott's in it, so...
It'll be interesting to see which route they go.
Maybe he'll put Ashore Bott full back.
Because Owens is
a
much
bit
bigger,
more solid,
and it'd be able to match Higson's strength. I just personally feel like Ashore Bott's a fullback. I like to see him at fullback because I like to see him come out the back door.
Is Widnes' best hope? Is Widnes' best hope that it's a higher scoring game? Do you think?
I'm not too sure because I think Widnes' defence is pretty good. I think Toronto are obviously going to post points because they've got a decent attacking shape. But I think Widnes' defence is good. I don't think they're too bothered if it's a low scoring game or a high scoring game.
And obviously,
and I think Widnes' forward pack could easily match Toronto's. I know Toronto's team on paper.
They've got a few old heads in there. Widnes boosted by Jay Chapelau's in the squad, by the way, so he could be a potential comeback, which might mean that Harrison Hansen could play in the back row where he's been propping. But having said that, I think Sam Wild's gone pretty well so far this season. So.
And he's kind of had a point to prove, hasn't he, this season, Sam Wild. Obviously, he's been in Super League a number of years now. Still relatively young, but he's been in around the Super League system now for a couple of years at Warrington and Widnes, so he's kind of had a point to prove because he lost his place towards the end of last season, didn't he? But he's playing very well. I mean,
obviously Toronto have got, John Wilkin, Ashton Sims, they've got a lot of Bodie Thompson, a lot of experience. It's one of them games where, like I say, Widnes go into it with nothing to lose, because if Widnes finish the game and they've lost, they've got 4 points out of 6 from 3 pretty tough games, haven't they? Whereas, if anything, the pressure's on Toronto, because if Widnes turn Toronto over, all of a sudden you're thinking, well, if Widnes can beat Toronto, they can beat anyone for a kick-off.
Yeah.
And then you're also thinking, if you're Toronto, we need Widnes to slip up and we need to win all of our games.
It's probably, this game's probably the best point it possibly can be for Widnes. Coming off a high after 2 opening wins. I know Toronto won their first 2 games, but I think it's the right time for Widnes because they would have received such a big confidence boost from that Toulouse win, whereas Toronto are yet to be tested fully.
Can we talk about the nonsense of it being played in Newcastle, Drew?
The nonsense, so I guess you're not happy with it.
So obviously both teams play on artificial pitches anyway.
So do you want it to be at Widnes?
No, not at all. It's obviously it's Toronto's home game, so I mean it's no skin off my nose. But I think playing in Newcastle, it's a lot easier for Widnes. It has to be said, in terms of you'd much rather play them in Newcastle than in Toronto, which you could say is perhaps not fair on other teams. But isn't it just a bit of a joke that they can't play at home until May time?
Bit cold though, isn't it, James?
I know, I understand that. Why have them in the league?
I think you'd have to take about 3 suitcases just so you can get that many layers on if you were playing at this time of year in Toronto. We clash on this one, James, because I'm a fan of the old Toronto concept, whereas you are. I'm not too fussed with them about having block fixtures.
In some ways, is it probably better for Toronto that it's over here, because they're only based in Manchester, aren't they? So I mean, it's a lot better for their players as well to be playing it in the.
Well,
I suppose
the players are obviously used to the.
They're used to it, but I think the argument being that potentially, say this was actually Toronto's first home game of the season and it was in Canada, Widnes and Toronto would have both been flying out at the same time, which then Toronto lose a bit of the advantage that they do have when they're based over there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But having said that,
it does suit Widnes.
Yeah.
And the artificial turf will suit both teams anyway, because like you said, they both play it.
And a quick word as well about Kingston Park, which I've been to before. It's a fantastic facility. The pitch there is beautiful. Yeah. Like the artificial pitch there is absolutely spot on. They have top flight rugby union there. Nice little setup. There's a nice.
It's a nice ground, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very nice ground. It's like an old rugby union club that's been converted a little bit on one side, and then there's a couple. So if you go into Newcastle, or if you're thinking of going, I definitely recommend it.
And the Widnes fans won't be complaining, will they? A weekend in Newcastle.
Well, I mean, I was complaining because I wanted to go to Toronto, but I mean,
they just like the magic weekend. At least they can go up to Newcastle.
Yeah, I think now. Well, you I suppose you're at the situation now where you're hoping you never have to go to Toronto, because you're sort of hoping, well, you won't get them away in the playoffs, and then Widnes will get promoted and won't have to play them anyway.
Oh, they might get promoted.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I didn't want to say that. But no, really interesting. I've just been doing a separate story about Toulouse. Just had a phone call from a contact in France, and obviously Toulouse have lost both their games now, and they were asking me who I thought is going to challenge. Based on what the 2 weeks so far, do we think it's a shootout between Toronto and Widnes already? Do we think they're the only two
No,
teams capable?
I think Toulouse are still there, thereabouts. Obviously, Toronto have got to go to Toulouse, yeah. Which when the weather hopefully brightens.
I think they're in Toulouse at the start of March, so it probably
so
still be.
So it's still be. So Toronto. Quite possible. If Toronto win in Toulouse, so then Toulouse will definitely be 6 points behind the leader. That'll be it then. It'll ride on that game.
Drew, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Sorry we're a bit late this week. Please do subscribe on YouTube, share on Facebook, Twitter, give us your comments, drop us your likes. I know I've got a few bits and bobs that I've promised that we're going to do in the next coming weeks, including the fan phone-in chat thing that I've mentioned a couple of times. Feel free to drop me a message if you've got any suggestions, or indeed if you want to come and sit on our sofa and join us in the office here. But until next week, see you now for now.